are literally creating a toxic load by eating that pork from the store. Right. Versus this is actually nourishing your body. So by creating that, you're making your body actually work harder.
Now you have animals that have no immune system. They're giving them subtherapeutic antibiotics so that they can be proactive on this, but then you're consuming those antibiotics.
Are you ready to unveil wisdom and insights beyond conventional healthcare and nutrition? Welcome to the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. Throughout each episode, we explore perspectives designed to empower you and activate your radiant health, wellness, and vitality from within as you make your body your ally on your journey to optimal well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Beata Harasim, specializing in gut health for digestion, weight loss, anxiety, fertility, pregnancy, and breastfeeding. Make sure to click the subscribe button and share with anyone you think would benefit. These episodes are for educational purposes only, and please consult with your physician or a practitioner before making any changes. Let's go. Your journey to radiant health starts here. Hello and welcome everyone to this next episode of the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. My name is Dr. Beata Harasim. I'm a holistic and integrative doctor helping you activate radiant health, wellness, and reclaim your vitality from within. On this episode, we have a special guest and one of my dear friends, Darren Cugno, and we are going to be discussing the importance of getting really high quality meat, pasture-raised meat, and not what you're getting at your local grocery store. And so Darren is a local farmer here in Connecticut, and someone who I've personally known for over a decade now, which is crazy to really say like out loud when I think about it. But he is a wealth of knowledge, and I'd love to have Darren introduce himself and talk a little bit about how he started doing organic farming.
Hi, Beata. Yeah, we've always had an interest in food, my whole life. And I started, organic farming, vegetables and all that about 11, 12 years ago. And shortly after that, we figured out that we produced quite a lot of waste on the farm. And rather than just put it all into the compost, we started with a few pigs, and that was a really good fit, so we could cycle all those nutrients back into the animals. And to be honest with you, like I went through a stage where I basically stopped eating pork. I mean, the store-bought pork was of such poor quality that no one in my family really wanted it. So the very first animals that we harvested, the difference was so profound that, it was like a completely different product. And then I started to get more into just letting the animals, exhibit their natural behaviors. And in that time frame, we acquired a new farm where we had more land, and a large section of it was wooded. And so we started raising them in the woods and moving them around in the woods. And that took things to a whole nother level. I think I always tell people when they come to the farm, you're going to see these pigs doing things that you'll never see a store-bought animal do. And the first one, usually like when we drive out there to see them, they all come running. And it's like, well, that's one thing that a factory farm animal never does in its life. It lives in the little stall, gets no exercise, never sees sunshine, fresh air. They constantly have their nose in the dirt. And, I don't know exactly what they're eating at any given moment, but they've got their nose in the dirt and they're always chewing on something. So they're getting something from it. And I think one of the biggest differences is everything in the factory farming world is all about maximizing yield and minimizing inputs. So they try to raise the animals as quickly as they can, get the highest feed conversion rate that they can, and nowhere in there is there any emphasis on quality. So what they're doing is they're taking these animals and they don't want them to get exercise because that would slow down their growth rate. they only raise them to like 190 pounds, 180 pounds. So they never even reach maturity. So they never develop full flavor. You know what I mean? It's an immature animal. It's like comparing veal to beef. And it's noticeable, like if you were to buy pork from me, you'll see the color is really dark. It almost looks like beef. And there's several reasons for that, but one of the biggest ones is that it's a mature animal. And, I've had so many people that, like myself, had stopped eating pork, and now they love pork. So it's, of all the meat that's out there, I think the biggest difference is the pork. I mean, you can occasionally get decent beef at the store. You can never get good pork at the store. It's just trash.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I have to attest to this. I mean, my daughter's practically, fully raised on your pork. And, it's one of those things that the taste is very different. And we come out and see the farm multiple times a year. And so we've seen these little piggies from when they were little all the way to, sometimes we come just a couple of weeks before they're ready to go. And I mean, we've been able to pet the piggies. They are super friendly. From what I've seen, the happiest pigs that I've ever seen. And they really are. They're in the dirt, they're in the forest. And the thing that I thought was really cool is because you rotate through the different parts of forest that you have. When we go and we see, where they were last year, and that part of the forest is completely, cleaned out, right? They have eaten up all the weeds, all of the, dug up roots and whatnot. And then they start in a new patch of the forest, and it's, grown nicely and, all that. And we see it transform over the course of that year. So, the pigs are consuming this natural material. And really, from what I've seen, they're meant to be raised in a forest setting. Isn't that correct?
In the wild, that's how pigs would live. I mean, that is the ideal situation. And when from a practicality standpoint, I see people that raise pigs locally, and it baffles me that 90% of them, they put them in a tiny little pen, and they just like have to bring in all their food, and they have to clean out all that waste. And pig poop is not pleasant, And like when the USDA came out here and asked me about my manure management plan for the pigs, I had to laugh because we don't have a manure management plan because we give them a huge area. They spread their, fecal material, which actually is good for the woods. It provides fertility, but they're not concentrated. So I never have to deal with that. The only time we do any cleanup is if we haul them in the trailer somewhere, then we have to clean the trailer out. But other than that, it's like it's the perfect system because it's about 5 to 6 years before they end up back on the same piece of ground. We have enough woods where we can keep moving them around. So not only do you not have to deal with the manure, but there's no issue with any pathogens, because that's a big problem with what they're doing is on the commercial side, they're trying to create a sterile environment to raise animals in, which is just absurd. I mean, you cannot, nature will find a way to breach your sterile environment. It could be as simple as a fly flying into your factory farming facility, carrying some sort of bit of whatever, fecal material, anything from the outside world. And these animals now are so fragile because they haven't been exposed to anything. Their immune systems are not functional. And so it's kind of a folly that they think that, like it's to the point where like if you want to go to these places, you have to go through almost like a decontamination before you can walk in the door. You have to wear booties. You have to go through like a disinfectant. And it's like, and in the end, they're losing. That's why they're using these antibiotics, because if something gets into that facility, it could literally wipe out the whole place. And, so when now you have animals that have no immune system, they're giving them subtherapeutic antibiotics so that they can be proactive on this, but then you're consuming those antibiotics. And then, you have not only the the negative effects from that, but then if, you were to get sick and need those antibiotics, their effectiveness might not be what they should be.
Right.
It's
Absolutely. And antibiotic resistance is such a big issue nowadays that, that's leading from that, with people consuming all of these animal products that do have a lot of antibiotics in them. And then it's affecting us. And, the other component of that as well is, these animals in these factory farms, they have small quarters. Like you said, they have no immune system. They are extremely fragile. And think of the life force, think of the energy that we are getting when we consume that kind of meat. Right? Is that something that's going to be making us strong and healthy as a human by consuming that product?
Right.
I would say absolutely not. Versus if we are consuming an animal that's raised in their natural environment, that is strong, that is fit, that's getting their exercise, that's getting exposure to all sorts of different, foods, but also even pathogens, and building this resiliency from within. And then when we consume that, piece of meat, we're getting that life force and energy as well from that animal. Right. And in a way, we're able to really honor and respect that animal. And this is kind of an off topic thing, but really not off topic. But, when I get my pig from you and when I get it butchered, I get every single piece of that animal. And Darren knows, and the butcher knows me very well for that reason, because, this animal, we want to honor it. We want to, and they're super nutritious, right? So let's talk about organ meats, how absolutely nutritious they are, full of nutrients and minerals and, again, life force energy. And then, even things like I get the head to make stock with, the tail even to make stock with, the feet and the, not hooves, what's the word for it? Just the feet. Yeah. The pig feet. Right. And I mean, the stock that creates. So that's a beautiful, I find, thing as well, that when I do get, an animal locally and it's from Darren, the butcher allows me to utilize all of that animal and to really honor the animal and, in a way, show respect and reverence for that animal. And when we're getting things from the, just local grocery store, those animals, I mean, they're getting that pork loin cut and, whatnot, the ribs taken out, and the rest of the animal, who knows what that's, happening with. So it's a way that we can actually create less waste. We can actually nourish ourselves even more by utilizing these parts that are not as well known. But when we really look at ancient and traditional cultures, they knew all about this, because that is really some of the most nutritious parts of the animal. So I kind of took us on a little tangent, but I thought that was important to mention. And one of the big benefits of getting a pig, one of our little piggies from you every year.
Right. No, I always encourage people to try to use as much as possible. And it really distresses me when they only take the prime cuts, don't take any of the organs, the fat, and it's like, I try to go there and take as much as I can.
Yeah.
Or, I send some your way, obviously.
Yes, I appreciate it.
The less than prime cuts, I mean, are in some ways the most flavorful and nutritious. The things that the parts of the animal that do the most work tend to have the most flavor. They might not lend themselves to really easy preparation. You know what I mean? Like if you like the feet, I mean, you just can't cook a pig foot and eat it. But if you cook it correctly, I mean, and slowly, and you use it to make broth, it's full of connective tissue. It's full of collagen. It's got so much nutrition there. I mean, that it's like gold. And then, people just throw all that stuff away. It really bothers me.
Absolutely.
Bring the lard, taking the organs. I mean, if you use the whole animal, it becomes pretty economical. Your yield from a pig, from hanging weight, hanging weight is like a third of live weight, or you lose about a third. 25% to a third. And then from hanging weight to prime cuts, you lose, you end up with about 70% in prime cuts. So that's another 30% that, you could utilize. And then if you look at what the cost is per pound, if you take everything, it's dramatically cheaper. You know what I mean? Because it is expensive to raise the animals the way that I do. We use non-GMO feed. We get brewer's grain from my neighbor. We get some whey from my other neighbor. And, we try not to just raise them on just a standard pig ration. We try to, just like a human, we want to give them as much variety as we possibly can. And so it makes the cost significantly more. And then if I have to get it done at a USDA facility, then it gets really expensive. So buying whole and half pigs is definitely the way to go. And the real advantage, one of the biggest advantages, is you always get what you want. When I send these animals off to the USDA facility, I never get what I want. It's like sometimes I get the organs, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I get, things packaged in a way I didn't want, or cuts that I don't want. The beauty is when you go to the butcher, he stands there on one side with your pig there, and he asks you, as he does it, what you want. And that way you get everything just to your liking, and it's like, that's priceless today. I mean, it's really hard to do that when you just drop an animal off and you give him a cut sheet. It seems like you never get exactly what you're looking for. And the cost being so much more, it prevents people from buying it. And I can't blame them. It's 3 times the cost of what it is at the store, but it's a completely different product as well.
Right. And the quality is so much more important than the quantity, in my opinion, because, you are literally creating a toxic load by eating that pork from the store. Right. Versus this is actually nourishing your body. So by creating that, you're making your body actually work harder. So when we eat from that, the pork from the store, the toxic environment and the lack of immune system, the toxins from the antibiotics, medications, etc., from the feed, the toxins in that animal are being passed down to us. And therefore, our body has to actually work harder. So that's the beauty of getting these animals that are, again, forest raised, pasture raised, that are, brought up with love. And I know that, there's so much love on your farm. We can feel it every time we come. That is, going to rebuild us. It's going to strengthen us. It's going to help us. And I mean, like you mentioned with the brewer's yeast and the whey, like your pigs get probiotics. You ferment things for them, which again is so beneficial to their microbiome, to their health, that then is passed down to us. I don't know any other pigs that are getting probiotics and, these naturally fermented, food ingredients in their diets. And I, again, as someone who loves gut health and who firmly believes in gut health, for, all of the improvements and gut health affects everything, right? It affects everything from our skin to our digestive system, to our mental clarity, to our, vitality. So these pigs are getting that in that fermented, food that you're giving them as well.
Right. And, I tell people this all the time, and just to kind of put things in perspective on the vegetable side and on the animal side, the biology that's in living soil, I think they might be up to about 15% now of actually what they've identified is in living soil. In other words, naming the organisms. So that means 85%, they don't even know what they are, let alone what they do. So the fact that these animals are outside with their nose in that soil, I think they're getting a lot of beneficial life that we don't even know what they are, let alone what they do, and so I think that's the key to it. It's like the same with people. It's like we need access to that living soil. And, you know, we consume a lot of things on the farm here where we're literally eating the soil. You know, like I'll pull a carrot out of the ground and brush the dirt off of it, and I'll eat that carrot. It might be a little bit of soil on there. I'm not worried about that. Now, in a conventional farm, you would be foolish to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, and if you see all of the serious health problems people have gotten, you know, these E. coli outbreaks and all these things, almost without fail, it's from a huge industrial farm where, you know, the soil is dead, basically. And it doesn't matter if it's an organic farm or it's a conventional farm, because most of the organic stuff now is grown hydroponically. And so no one is getting that connection to the living soil. And this is just another, you know, another layer of that, where the pigs are out there every day consuming it. And so, yes, I believe that is getting passed on. When you consume that pork, you're getting some of that energy. And it's going to be a long time before anyone's going to be able to convince me that you can just take any system, whether it's plant or animal, and turn it into a factory and end up with a product that's nutritionally the same. And that's what's happening in the world now with everything. Everything is trying to be turned into a factory where we can control every aspect of it. You know, when you buy your organic, whatever, berries at the supermarket, almost all of those, virtually all of those, are grown hydroponically. They've just eliminated living soil. So now you're consuming a product that the only benefit is it shouldn't be genetically modified. It shouldn't have the pesticide load. But what's missing is just as important as what's, you know, the pesticide part of it. And so having the animals out there in living soil, and they're eating more of it than you can, I can't even imagine how much dirt a pig must eat. Everything that they eat is covered in dirt. So they're consuming it constantly. And I think it's the minerals, that's part of it. But every once in a while, they'll find some area out there that they really like. Like I think, you know, this farm was here since the house was built in 1780. So it's been a farm for a long time. And I think they used to make charcoal way back in the day. And there's a few places where the pigs found, I believe, these old charcoal mounds, and they were just ravenous for it. Mm-hmm. Like I went out there and I looked at, you know, I didn't see what was going on. I just saw the pigs and they were all black. It's like, what the hell have they gotten into? And I found this small little area and they just excavated that thing out and they were just eating the charcoal. I mean, so that's an example that they know intuitively what's good for them. And, you know, how sad is it to put that animal in a confined area, feed it the same ration every day, and then, you know, they have to dock their tails, dock their ears, because out of sheer boredom, they'll literally like chew each other's tails off. It's tragic, you know. Imagine doing that to a human, you know. I mean, how long before you would lose your mind, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's huge, you know, like you mentioned, that living soil, because in that soil, there are microbes. It's a microbiome of its own. And so the way that you know, I like to think of you as beyond organic, because, you know, really you're regenerating that soil with that manure, with the pigs, you know, and again, even with your chickens, I know you do that as well. And so when we're building the soil and supporting it naturally, really, then it becomes that much healthier. There's more microbes in harmony living there. And then, you know, for your vegetables and, you know, fruit and all that, that's going to be even healthier as well. But again, those animals living in that environment are going to be healthier. So that is such a huge point, because again, you're not going to find that on any factory farms and even on the regular organic farms, right, like you mentioned. So that's why this is, you know, beyond organic in many ways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, an interesting thing happened here a few years ago. I've been getting pigs, you know, I only raise a small number of pigs a year, so it's not worth it for me to keep a couple of sows or, you know, and breed them and all. I usually buy my pigs, and I had been buying them from the same person who raises their pigs outdoors, and once in a while we'd lose a pig. It does happen. Normally it only happens when you first get them. You bring them to a new place. They're small, they're a little bit fragile when they're young, but once they're there and they're acclimated, it's rare to lose one. Well, a few years back, I couldn't get all my pigs from this one source, so I got some from a friend of a friend kind of thing, and they were factory pigs. And it was amazing what happened. We put them out there. I did lose like one early on, but then I had them for like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And all of a sudden they would get sick and just die. I mean, it was the craziest thing. I mean, like, I check on my pigs every day, sometimes twice a day. I went out in the morning, they all looked fine. I went back in the afternoon, one looked just a little bit off. You know what I mean? You can kind of tell. You get to know your animals, and it's like they just didn't have the vigor that I thought they should have. I went out the next day, that pig was dead. It was that quick. And it was like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? It's like I've never experienced this before. Then like a few weeks later, I went out and I lost 2 pigs. I mean, it's unheard of. But they were all from the group that I got from this other farm. So all these pigs are living in the exact same environment. The ones that I got from my normal supplier, raised outdoors, never got sick, never lost any of them. This other group, I ended up losing like 5 pigs that year. I called the vet. The vet came out, and it's like, well, all we can do is give them antibiotics. It's like, I don't really want to give them antibiotics. You know what I mean? He said, well, I mean, the only way to really know what it is, it's some sort of a bacterial infection, is we'd have to take a tissue sample, send it out for testing. It was like $1,000. And I said, well, at the end of the day, what's that going to tell me? He said, well, that you have to use antibiotics. So it's like, so we actually lost one pig on the tailgate of my truck here. And we found that they had like this, it was pneumonia, you know what I mean? But the result of them being in a sterile environment. And you think about like how many generations even a small factory farm can produce in how short a period of time. So it's probably been years that those animals didn't get exposed to anything. And it shows. And it's the same thing with people.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
And it's like it was right before or right around the beginning of the COVID thing. And it's like the parallels for me were so dramatic. It's like, well, here's, all these people that are having a really hard time with this. And, unfortunately, a lot of people even passed away, but it was mostly due to their immune system being so fragile. And a huge part of it is consuming the subtherapeutic antibiotics, consuming poor quality food, not being exposed to the biology that's in the world. And then, a pathogen comes along and takes them out. And, it's like, for me, it's like now I really go out of my way to make sure that I never get those animals from that setting again. But it's getting really difficult to find anyone who raises pigs outdoors. They're all going to this indoor model. And it's like, in the short term, they think that they're saving money and they're producing, a product that, they think is good. Like, I've had this conversation with other farmers, and it's like, well, what you're doing is like, it's cruelty. You don't have climate control in there for it. That resilience, I think you need a degree of stress to make you resilient, like to have them in a climate controlled, sterile environment. Yes, you are producing an animal faster and cheaper, but it's not a quality animal. And if anything breaches your security, you theoretically could lose everything. And I think it's starting to happen now with chicken operations and with pork operations, where they're starting to see more mortality. And the other thing is they're having more and more, again, a lot of parallels with humans, more and more issues with breeding. It used to be like, if you were the one that operated that aspect of the business, it kind of took care of itself. Now they're having issues where, the litters are smaller, they're more problematic, they're sicker. And I think that's directly related to their business practices.
Right, absolutely. And, that's, again, such a parallel because we see the same thing happening in humanity now. I mean, infertility levels are only rising. And, like you mentioned with COVID, but also, I mean, just in general, as we look through the generations of people, on antibiotics, using hand sanitizer every single moment of the day, we need that exposure to the environment. We need exposure to bacteria. We need exposure to viruses. And guess what? Just sitting wherever you are, wherever you are, watchers and listeners, right? You actually have bacteria and viruses all around you right this moment.
Right.
And our body needs that exposure for that resiliency. And our immune system actually, by practicing and getting these exposures actually becomes fitter in that sense. And so, I always say it's quantumly entangled because we need that exposure. We also need to be nourishing ourselves well. We need to be taking care of our gut health. We need to be, looking at our emotions and our energies and our nervous system, regulating that all at the same time. But we need all of that for this resiliency and vitality. And if we are smothering ourselves in, hand sanitizer and which one is it? I think it's Dial, which is like the antibacterial soap. If you're showering with that every single day, right? And there are some people that I've met that are like, I need to do that every day because they have so much anxiety around germs, right? Germ theory is something that, I don't fully believe in. We are exposed to these things all the time. It's our immune system and our energy, our life force, and how it deals with the exposure to that makes us sick or not sick. And right. It's not always a bad thing to be sick as well. So if we do happen to, have an infection or, a cold or something like that, it's our body's way of detoxifying. So it's not necessarily quote unquote bad like many of us think it is. And it's kind of a whole paradigm shift of how do we support our body? Okay, if we're detoxifying, how do we support it through that process? But also, how do we decrease the toxin load? Right? There's a reason why we're detoxifying. And so there's so many aspects of this that we could go into, but I think that's something really important to mention because what we were seeing from the animal side, Darren, I'm seeing and other practitioners are seeing in the human side. And, again, we need both to work together well, but we also need to be taking care of ourselves and making these decisions and their choices and prioritizing certain things to support ourselves as humans as well.
Right. I 100% agree. And then look at the approach everyone takes. As soon as they start to get ill, they look for either, they reach for the Tylenol or the Advil to reduce their fever or whatever over-the-counter med to reduce the symptoms. That's all part of the process. You know what I mean? You don't want to lower your fever unless it's extreme because that's your body dealing with the infection. And, it's like I just came to this conclusion fairly recently that the more comfortable we become, the more unhealthy we become. You know what I mean? You need to stress yourself physically. It's not good to be striving for just to be in complete comfort your whole life. I mean, that's like we're only a few generations removed from people running around in the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
And to think that we can adapt that quickly is just ridiculous. And the reason I think it's more acute with the pigs is because they have so many generations so quickly that, you could have, in a few years, you could have 25, 30 generations of animals living completely sterile lives. And so it's manifesting in them much faster, but we're kind of on the same path. It's just taking longer because it's only been a few generations that we've been able to have all these comforts and basically exposed to all of these toxins and it just in the before 1940, what was it, 80% of the population led an agrarian lifestyle. mean, you're talking about, our parents and grandparents, they lived that lifestyle. And here we are. I mean, look at how far we've gone in the other direction. And there's no way that our biology can adapt that quickly.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to get the word out, I feel, because one, as consumers, we need to know. And also, who knows, maybe there are some farmers that are going to be watching this as well, or people that are interested in getting into farming and knowing that someone is doing it, that it is possible, that, you're an example for others as well at the same time, which is so important. And to, bring some excitement back around that, getting back to our roots, back to, how again, just a couple generations ago, how things were done, and they were done well without all this need for the sterile environments, without all the medications, without all this. So it is possible, and it's important to be aware of that as well.
Right. I mean, nature, like I think it was Elliot Coleman, a famous farmer from up in Maine, said, nature always has the most elegant solutions. And it's so true. It's like we always, we try to streamline the process, and it started right after World War II when they, what they call the Green Revolution, when they discovered chemical fertilizers and all. And it's like, you don't need to do all of that. All you do is you get this petroleum-based fertilizer and you apply it, and you don't have to worry about manure and compost and all these things that people have done forever that works. And then, the shortcut is never the complete answer. It might be in the short term allowing you to do, increase your yields or whatever, but at what cost? You're producing an inferior product. Like I said, they don't even know most of the biology in living soil. When you take that out of the equation, you have no way of predicting what the downstream consequences of that are. And, if you look at most of agriculture now, that's the approach they use. They're killing the soil and they're producing a product that looks the same, might taste similar, usually doesn't taste as good, but similar, but does not have the nutrition, not only on a macro level, but more importantly on a micro level. There's so many different things in plants that we don't even measure. When they look at nutritional values, it's mostly like, the macronutrients. And I heard someone tell me that they were trying to test micronutrients and they were finding as much as a 20, 30, 40, 50-fold increase depending on how the plant was raised in some of these micronutrients. So what you're getting is like this, I'm sure you've touched on this. We have this obesity epidemic, and it's people starving for nutrition. That calorically replete, they have no nutrition. That's why they can't eat enough food to satisfy them, and they end up being overweight while being malnourished.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of my biggest pillars is, we can be eating all these things. And this goes for, I was on this journey years and years ago as well, where I was eating lots of these protein bars and, fortified foods, etc., thinking that I'm getting all my nutrition. I wasn't, because your body's not able to absorb and utilize what's fortified. And, the actual percentage, I remember there was, I'm trying to think of the actual product, but it was something where it was like 1,000% of B6. Well, guess what? How much of that was I actually able to utilize in my body? Maybe 1 or 2% of that. The rest you just peed out. So you're creating expensive pee, thinking that you're eating these products. And that's important to note that a lot of, again, these even organic labeled fruits, vegetables, meat products, etc., if they're not really raised in this living soil environment, they're not going to have as much nutrition as something that is raised on, again, a small local farm, someone who's really doing practices beyond organic. And I think that's so important because people talk about this often where they're like, oh, you could be eating the best food and you're still not getting your nutrition. And to a certain point, I agree with that. And except for find those local farmers, find those connections. Like I'm so grateful to have, connected with you and find those people locally in your area. Darren's in Connecticut, and if you're in Connecticut, I highly recommend you go see him at the Wethersfield Farmers Market or over in Colchester. And, you know, at the same time, if you're not, because this is a worldwide audience at times, find your local people, find your local farmers. You know, you can even do it in your backyard as well for certain things. So, you know, take that into your hands, take responsibility of that. Make sure that you are getting that nourishment, because it is possible. It is possible. It's more challenging than maybe it was 100 years ago, but it is possible. And you just need to know what to do and what to look for. The other thing I want to quickly mention is with organ meats, something that I really recommend consuming because they are so nutritious. And at the same time, do not consume it from a regular grocery store. So you don't want to get the regular, you know, pig liver, chicken liver. At the bare minimum, it has to be organic, has to be, because these organ meats, and especially liver, is where it filters toxins, right? So you don't want to be eating conventional liver. At the bare minimum, it has to be organic, and from someone, again, local, like Darren or otherwise, is the standard. You want to be getting organ meats from someone like that.
Right. And you touched on another point that's really important is like when you meet a local farmer, I think that's the first step, but I think you need to go to the farm and actually see what's going on there, because I've heard of other places where they say all the right things, but you know, they're not necessarily doing all the right things. And it's like the only way to really know what's going on is if you develop a relationship with a local farmer, ask if you can come to the farm. If they're hesitant about having you come to the farm, I would be suspicious, because everything's getting greenwashed now. Everybody's saying all the right things, but it's really important to go there and see for yourself. Like, you know, I have a story about someone that, you know, was buying pork from somebody in my area. And, you know, so, oh, yeah, we have them, you know, raised outside on pasture. And their idea of being outside on pasture was they had like a whole bunch of pigs in a little tiny enclosure that had been used for pigs for God knows how long. It was just a mud pit. There was no biologically active soil there. It was actually like, it was just putrefied. It was hell, you know, and it was horrible. And so this woman, she came back to me and said, my God, you know, it's like I thought that I was getting this really good product, but then when I went there and saw what was going on, it was just like, it changed my whole perspective. And I think that's the key to it. You know, having a relationship with a farmer should be the easiest thing in the world. They should have, you know, obviously you just don't show up, you know, you have to make sure that someone's going to be around. But I mean, you can come to my farm anytime. Just call me, make sure I'm here. I don't have something going on that day or whatever. And then you can see for yourself. You can go there. You can ask questions. You can put your hand in the soil. You can see the pigs out in the woods. You can see the chickens on pasture. Then it's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And that's the only way to really know.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I'm so grateful for, you know, we come a couple times a year usually, and we always enjoy it. And that's the benefit as well, as my daughter. I mean, she's grown up seeing how animals are supposed to be raised. So when she, you know, she'll see the baby piggies, she'll see them growing up, she'll see them at the end. Sometimes she'll pick out which one she wants at the end of the season, you know, but she sees these animals, she's pet the pigs, she's fed them. You know, I remember I have a little picture of her feeding kale to them that I loved when she was so little, you know, but what an experience for a child. I mean, you know, like what a learning experience, and what an experience that changes them for a lifetime. Because, and again, even adults, if we didn't have this growing up, right, seeing this for yourself is so important, because you can feel the difference, you can see the difference, and when you get the product, you can taste the difference as well.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that we try to quantify through analysis, and it's like the health and the well-being of the animals and just the joy. It's like, you know, when I go out to that pen in the morning, it's like I have a pack of dogs that are my pets. They swarm around me. Their tails are all wagging just like a dog. And, you know, they're literally living a really good, meaningful, healthy life. And I think that translates in the end product being more nutritious, and just, it's like ethically, it's the right thing to do. I mean, the sad thing is, like, we've demonized meat in our society now. And, going by the conventional factory farmed model, I can understand that. But that doesn't mean it's the only way that it can be done. There are, other ways to do it. And it's like, it's not animal cruelty when you have an animal living in its natural environment, exhibiting the behaviors that they're meant to be doing, that they're genetically predisposed to. What is ridiculous is to take an animal like that and put them into a factory setting. I mean, that is cruelty, and I probably would stop eating meat. If that's all I could get, I would probably stop as well, because I don't think, not only is it not healthy for you, it is bad for you. But, if you get like good quality meat from a reputable source done the right way, it is the most nutritious food that you can eat.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important. So for those who are local to Connecticut, we have obviously Darren here, and the local farmers markets as well. For those who aren't, if you do go ahead, and if you're anywhere in the world, really, go ahead and just type quality in the comments, and I'll be able to share a resource that you can find local high quality farmers wherever you are as well. So I wanted to offer that as well to everyone and to all the listeners. And, for Darren, I know that you are at the Wethersfield Farmers Market. I believe they start in May through October every year. So for those who are local, please do come out Thursday afternoons. I'm usually there as well. And it is such a fantastic environment. When you come, do your shopping, but also bring a blanket, like bring some chairs. There's music playing. It's such a great ambiance. The people are really friendly, and, go ahead, talk to the farmers again, talk to the vendors, but also enjoy yourself. It's fresh air. There's a huge open field for the kids to run around, or, for you to just take a walk around. So I invite everyone to check it out and to come and really experience it. And for Darren, I know that with the pigs, you also do pre-orders as well. So I wanted to let people know that they can put in their reservation essentially for their pig for the fall, to make sure that they can get one. So Darren, what's the best number to reach you at? Because I know you do phone numbers, you do the legit thing, not the website stuff.
We don't do much online, but my phone number is 860-908-7778. And we'll be taking orders usually in April, and we'll get our pigs hopefully by the first week in May, and they're typically ready by the end of October.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and the whole process, Darren can walk you through if you have any questions. But it's fairly straightforward, and he's very easy to work with from my personal experience as well. And the other thing, I know you mentioned that you do sell certain products on a website as well. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. We use an online marketing service. It's called Healthy Plan Eat, all one word. I mean, you can look that up. And the way that works is basically all these local farms list what products they have available. And there are several pickup locations throughout the state of Connecticut. And you just go online, you set up an account, you order your products, and then there are all these different pickup spots where we deliver, usually it's weekly. And I have meat on there, vegetables in season, that sort of thing. So if you wanted to try some of my pork or something, that would be a good place to start.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest here, Darren. It's always great chatting with you. And for anyone, again, interested in more, the information, the phone number, the website will be all listed below in the comments and the description. And we're also doing another episode with Darren, more so on the vegetable side as well. So keep an eye out for that. And again, thank you so much for being here, Darren. Any last message that you want to give our audience today?
Just like try to stay as close to nature as you can. Get outside, get sunshine, get fresh air. We've all evolved to be outdoors, exposed to nature as much as possible. And I think, especially young kids, they need it more now than they ever have. And I think You know, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Take your shoes off, run around out there in the grass. You know, that's what we're evolved to do. And I think that's one of the first steps to being healthy.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely true. Thank you so much, Darren. And we will, again, put all the information below, and we will see you on the next episode of the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. With deep gratitude and appreciation, I'm extending an invitation to you for the free Secrets to Radiant Health mini course, where I unveil the hidden keys to radiant health, wellness, and vitality by identifying and addressing your unique root causes. I also invite you to join us virtually or in person at our next live mini retreat. These links and all the links we mentioned in the show are listed below in the description and show notes. If you like this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please like, subscribe, leave a rating or a review, and please share this episode with others. Remember, your radiant health and wellness lies within when you work with your body as your ally.